Welcome to Life Workshop, where we discuss the forgotten basics. Hi everyone, again it's your most favorite people here.
Favorite co-host. Good to be back. Hi everybody.
And the host, of course, me.
Yeah, he's not important.
So we are going to be talking about this subject. This is the second episode on which comes first, education or experience. To recap about what we said in the previous episode, that basically as a general rule, and when I say education, again, I'm not talking only schooling. Schooling is one type of education, but education can be asking questions from somebody who has a proven track record. Again, not just anybody. Mm-hmm. You don't ask, I have to fix your car, from somebody who is not a mechanic.
I'll fix it. I've got lots of opinions on it. I'll YouTube it, but
I'm not going to ask questions. Actually, YouTube is another thing that you can use for education part. But basically, you want to ask somebody with a proven track record. And it's better for our stuff if you want to speak in the fields that we have a proven track record.
And I think you mentioned previously that you might have one or possibly two areas where you are considered clever, where you can have a good and honest and real opinion. The rest is just fluff.
Kind of. Actually, this is exactly where I want to go. We don't have to be an expert in everything. We have to be expert really good at as one or two things. For example, for me personally, being physio and good looking. Sorry, that's not what I meant.
And humble. So you've got three going for you.
For me, for example, being a physiotherapist, I want obviously to be good at it because this is my livelihood. That is how I make my life. But the second thing, I'm doing this podcast, I want to be good at, hopefully the material that I'm offering, as well as the way that I'm offering it. Mm-hmm. But for example, am I good at expert in
technology?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to push on the sort of spot, okay?
So every time before we start these episodes, there's a 20-minute
work to see how this camera works.
Self-speaking tutorial of how to switch on my GoPro.
But yeah, basically, for example, can I claim that, I do cook recently and I cook well, but can I claim that I'm a good cook?
You're not a good cook. You're a healthy cooker, but doesn't mean you're good at it.
Correct. Yeah. And actually, there is an expression, because you treated your cold doesn't make you a doctor. So, just saying.
But what if I Googled it?
Again, doesn't make you a doctor. Make you a good Googler. So for me, for example, I have started...
Can that be one of my two things that I'm good at?
Sure.
Google. Okay.
There is a niche for that too.
Right. I'm good at eating and Googling.
Yeah. But for example, for myself, as I cook, and there are a few dishes that I can make and they become really tasty, but there are few. But can I claim that I'm a good cook? What, you should just show my show. Show
a 5-star Michelin star cook.
And but we do this thing. This is the very interesting part. We do this thing. I'm saying this, for example, we see, in the past it was more that, for example, the guy is a doctor. Now I'm going to talk to him about my finances. But he's a doctor as a GP doctor. Why do you want to talk about the finances? Okay, and they thought that the person, because he's a smart or educated in one field and pretty good, should be in everything.
Okay. That's a fair assumption, but what if he is a doctor, but he's also very financially savvy and successful, not just because he's a doctor, but he is clever?
That can apply to anybody. That you can be a carpenter and can be good at something else.
But he's got a proven track record in being good with money.
I'm a physio, but I have been told that I simplify things well. I can speak clearly, but it doesn't mean every single physio is that. And doesn't mean every single doctor. For now, I have some cough and cold, but for my finances, I'm going to talk to my doctor too, because the other doctor was very good in finances. Right. So randomly, it can be. I said the one or two things, it can be, but it is not a blanket thing. But say when you go to the doctors, normally all of them, the GPs, so hopefully they know about cough and cold and the stuff more than the average Joe. That is what they are trained for. But are they all of them good at the finances?
No.
That's the thing. Maybe
yeah.
somebody is good.
Correct. Yeah, that's generalizing, and that's probably when you're wrong.
Hmm. So we cannot, that generalization doesn't work. But another thing, as I said earlier, normally we know almost 80% of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between a mediocre and very good is the remaining 20%. Even as a general rule, for example, in almost any field that you use 20% of your whole knowledge that you have learned to do 80% of the job that you do.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's a general rule. But I'm going to repeat this. For doing whatever you do, if, for example, you're an engineer, you're a doctor, you're a physio, you're an astronaut, I don't know who you are, any kind of carpenter, welder, you used almost 20% of your whole education to do 80% of the job that you do.
I see. Okay.
But for the remaining 20% of the job that you do, you need the 80% of the education that you got.
Okay.
Because myself, when I went to a school, we studied a lot of stuff that I said, why am I studying this? We never ever run into this.
You're never going to deal with it. Yeah.
But actually, I realized over years to come, correct, once in a blue moon, you get somebody that you see the symptoms are funny.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, I don't know what it is. You should go see somebody else. But that becomes the expert. Now that I have learned that there is something else existing, I don't know the treatment for it. Mm-hmm. It is out of my scope. But I know something else is existing and is a red flag for me that is out of my scope. But if I was not a physio, if I had not studied that 80% extra, I would think I can fix things too. You have cancer, I will fix it. Come here. I will fix it for you. And because of that, normally, I say confidence comes in for two reasons. Or you know a lot, or you don't know much at all.
Or you fake it really well.
Or you don't know much at all. And often, actually, the second one, often most of the confidence that we have is because we don't know much at all. So if I didn't know that there are some other diseases are existing and somebody comes even with cancer or some weird, rheumatological things that are existing, some of them I don't even know how to say the names anymore. If I didn't have it studied, I would not pick on those things.
Right.
But now, if I see something, I say, hey, you know what, there's something else, you should go see somebody else. And I direct them to the right direction.
But that's more like just a general awareness of those specific things. You're not good at it, you're not an expert in it, but you just have an idea of what it is.
Again, as I said, this is the difference between the mediocre and good.
Yeah.
The mediocre knows 80%. The good needs the remaining. So, and there are a few things that we want to be really good at. For example, as our jobs. And it's very important to become good at this. And this is a big mistake, I think, that is made, that sometimes we try to become good at everything. No, when you become good at everything, then it means that you're missing something. You want to be good at one,
mm-hmm.
maybe two, I don't know, if you have time, 3 things.
Right.
But you cannot be good at everything. For the rest of it, you're a mediocre. And it's okay to be a mediocre. And act like one and take your position correctly. I normally say that. Again, because you treated your cold, it doesn't make you a doctor. Because you fixed your leaking tap does not make you a plumber. And because I don't know, fix your car does not make you a mechanic.
No.
So act accordingly. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that we make. And then when you want to ask question, again, ask somebody with educated with a proven track record. Mm-hmm. Now, to continue with the same subject, this question has come, I don't know, schooling, does it work every time? The answer is definitely not every time. Schooling is a standardization of the way of thinking and doing stuff. Okay. For the most part, it's very good. But sometimes, actually, it kills the creativity.
Right.
Because they forces us, and sometimes we hear this thing that the schooling doesn't work. For example, this incident happened. We know that there are incidents that, for example, schooling actually is killing the creativity, or, for example, goes against a certain, let's say, student. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it works. normally to kind of make my point clear is this. I say, I saw a video of driving in one country, I don't know where it was, that there was a roundabout, and everybody was coming in different ways.
All places, yeah.
And sometimes they look at each other's eyes when they are driving, facing each other, that, to see who is going to give up.
Who's going to flinch first?
And for the most part, it works. But sometimes it doesn't. And this was the interesting part, that once we had a friend that we were talking, I said that I don't want to say the name of the country. I said, I guarantee you there are more car accidents there. He said, how can you say that? You haven't done any studies. I said, you know what? I'm ready to bet on it without even doing the study. Because it's such a proven thing. I mean, it's such a basic thing. I don't have to figure out that if I throw this, phone with, hard into the glass, it's going to break. I don't have to. I don't know the speed of it that is needed, but I know if you throw it hard enough, it will break the glass, it will break the phone. Now, for the details of it, what speed it goes, what angle it goes, that one the scientist is needed. But as a non-scientist, I can very clearly, I promise you push it hard enough, it will throw it hard enough, it will break it. And so that the principle is there. And sometimes we don't need to be Einstein to figure that out. It's a very proven thing. And actually afterwards, himself, he went and did the...
He took his phone and threw it through the window.
I'm going to tell you afterwards who it was. And that the bet was on a breakfast, and he lost the breakfast to me. Okay. And because he himself went and he said he's a mathematical guy, he's into stats and things, and he himself, he realized now he made a mistake. But anyway, back to this. And Norma says that, do you prefer to drive in a country that they have a driver's test? And we know that when we say driver's test, not necessarily every single person who passes the driver test is better than every single person who is failing it. I'm not saying that by any means. But if we have a standard that there is a driver's test, do you want to drive in that country or a country that there is no driver's test?
There's a free-for-all,
Yeah. Which one would you drive?
Well, you take your chances and go with the educated people that's gone with the driver's test, yeah.
And I would say
there's a lot more awareness created.
I would say a bad structure is better than no structure.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to now bring it up a little bit, in a bigger picture. Now, when it comes to, for example, you want to, I don't know, let's say cooking, or the same cleaning, or
you want to be dishwasher.
That. Yeah. Or some other things. Let's say, for example, you want to have a better life. You have some staffing issue. This was, for example, one of the interesting things. Or you have some issues with your colleagues. Who would you talk to? To somebody who has a proven track record. For example, myself, we had some challenges, at work, and I discussed it with different people, and sometimes it was just, I'm a kind of an out loud thinker. I was discussing it. Then I noticed some of the friends who do not have their own business, which most of them they don't, they started giving me some advice that were absolutely wrong. And I said, you know what, thank you. I was just talking about it, but thank you for your advice. Because you haven't done it, you don't know. And then it was very interesting when I was talking to some other friends that they were
business owners,
or for example, they were in managerial position that they had other people underneath them. The conversation was completely different. Yes. Actually, it was very interesting. Yeah. And I'm talking completely different. The tone was different. The way they approached it was different. And myself, I realized, why even am I discussing this with somebody? Of course, I was not really I was just sometimes out loud thinking, and I was just saying it.
Yep.
But then, and it doesn't mean that, again, what I'm trying to say that, so talk to somebody who has a proven track record. Right. Somebody who has actually experience on it too. So proven track record, sometimes you go to a school, you learn it, but you have become you have learned it just new. Then you need to experience on it too. Then that's how it makes you better. And again, as I said, when I say education, I don't mean just a school.
Just books, yeah.
Yep. I mean, for example, even if you want to use your can opener, use as somebody who has not broken his can opener because of bad using it, who has read the manual and used it successfully to see how to use it. And then that way you can basically go ahead. Now, go ahead. You want to say
something? No, go for it.
Once I said this, for example, I brought up with a friend that I said, I encourage my staff and everybody, not just the staff, I do it myself, to ask question.
Yeah.
Don't figure it out. But sure, if nobody's there to ask the question from, then sure.
Figure it out, yeah.
Then she said, Mo, you're a control freak. I said, what's the connection between a control freak and this?
And asking questions?
Yeah. I said, when I say it, I'm not saying just the staff and my staff. I'm talking, I would
Just
do
people.
it and
Yeah.
anybody to do it.
Yeah.
So I brought it randomly because something we connect dots, which completely, there's no connection. What does it have to do with control freak? I'm not suggesting that they have to listen to me. I mean, they have to. There should be some. Even myself, as a business owner, if I want to make a change, I go discuss it.
Right.
I make sure that everybody is on the same page, and then when we come to an agreement, and that agreement, of course, I should approve it at the end. But sometimes that approval is my words. Sometimes it's somebody else's word. They say that you said it, which is not my word, but I agree with
Right.
you.
Yep.
Let us do it that way, and then we will change it. And then, but sometimes some of the staff they think that I know it. I'm going to change it on my own. That becomes
Yeah.
what happened anyway. So,
But if you ask for someone's help or guidance, to leverage their experience, if they're good in a specific field, you never even consider whether that individual has got an education. Like, you don't go up to him and say, hey, do you have a degree in, I don't know, pharmacology? Or you go and ask them that question.
remember this too. When we say that some of the stuff, the education is a must. For example, some of the things that we have learned, let's say to become an engineer,
anything medical or engineer or
There is schooling.
certified professional. Yeah.
Some of the stuff in the human resources,
Right.
again, education is very important in my opinion, very important. But we know that there are some of the CEOs that they may not have that much of an education background. There are few and far in between, but I guarantee you, even those ones, they may not have the schooling,
Right.
but they have gone and studied it.
Right.
As
They
a
just
matter
don't
of
have a
fact,
piece of paper for it, but they know it.
yeah. As a matter of fact, personally, when I started my own business at the beginning, especially, I had lots of problem with the staffing. I mean, a lots of problem. What did I do? I didn't go to a school to study human resources or to get a business degree, but I did study quite a bit.
How to keep staff.
Yes, how to handle situations
Yes.
and how to do that.
Yeah.
So I went and learned it again. So it was education again. Yes, it was not through schooling, but it was education. I studied quite a bit, and those things, they helped me tremendously to the extent that, as you know, when for building the house, I acted as a general contractor, although I didn't know building process.
But that studying and that education was because of a need or a lack of experience.
Both of them. Of course, I did need it, and I didn't have nor the education behind it, nor the experience.
Yeah.
So then I had no option but to go and
Go and Google.
yeah. And
That's
actually I
true.
did. And
Yeah.
those days, it was a lot more limited option. But again, I did go Google a lot of stuff. I hired people.
So, I mean, even things like a constructive TED Talk is educational.
Oh, for sure.
A decent, well put together YouTube video is educational. A conversation with a friend that's good in a specific thing is educational.
Yeah. It's very important. Actually, I should say this though. I forgot to bring this up. I had a friend of mine just some time ago. It was a few years ago. He had a business degree. This is one of the interesting parts. He has a business degree and he's working as a sales rep for one company. And then he said, I said, so that's good. At least, your education came to your favor.
Mm-hmm.
He's responded, he said, to be honest, no, my education didn't do anything for me. That I have a business degree, but really it didn't help me. I'm just doing the sales.
It comes back to that 80-20.
No, actually, just a second though, just a moment. And then he continued, and I didn't have anything to say, but we continued. Then he said that he's the head of the sales department for that thing. And then he himself shared this with me, that they hired other salespeople. And then, because I know some of the companies right now, for example, Lay's, the chips thing,
Okay.
To best of my knowledge, they only hire people that they have a business degree for sales.
Oh,
They don't hire anybody else, to best of my
For
knowledge.
sales, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, but anyway, so he said that they hire some people. One of them has a business degree, the other one doesn't. And this was actually, it happened randomly that he said it. And then he said that, but one of them, I had to let him go. I said, why? He said the guy was, experienced. And I said, did he have a degree? He said, no. He said, but he had a very good, a lot of experience. I said, so why did you have to let him go? He said, because, he was not following the rules. He was just doing it his old school way. I said, remember this. When you go to a school, at least you learn one thing, that there is a structure.
Mm-hmm.
And the structure is not your experience necessarily.
Right.
There is a structure. Then you develop experience on top of that structure.
Exactly.
But that guy had not gone to a school, didn't learn there is a structure.
Right.
He just learned something randomly.
And it just wasn't, it wasn't what he knew. It wasn't what he
had
familiar
learned
with.
he had learned one thing, to cook one way, to do one way, and it worked for him.
Right.
But he didn't realize that in some other fields it doesn't work like that, or the era has changed. It should change. That is the. I said, so maybe when you went to a school, at least you learned one thing,
Right.
that there is a structure. Actually, I have to share this. It's becoming a bit longer, but I have to share this, thing. Myself, when I wrote my exam for becoming a physio in Canada, because I had obviously my degree from Iran, and then I worked in Dubai, and then I came to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, it was a written and practical exam.
thing. Yep.
The practical exam that I did, I failed in 2 of the stations. There are 20 stations, or it was those days. And although I passed the exam, but I was so offended that why did I fail these 2? And then I went and wrote a letter. I have it, and actually with a very bad English those days. But this was what they had. There was a young man who was supposed to act like somebody who has cerebral palsy. Okay. And with cerebral palsy, it's called a spastic, that basically they become tight. He was supposed to act like that, and then I was supposed to teach him how to stretch and prevent.
Get movement
more flexible.
Yep.
And then, but I failed that. So what I did, I went and wrote this big, thing for the Alliance of Physiotherapy those days. I said, look, this is not fair. When he cannot act like a real person, a real patient, because I have been out of school for 8 years. And now when I come, I don't remember. My brain doesn't work like this, that I remember, for this cerebral palsy with the spasticity, there is this type of the thing, stretching. That's not how my brain works. My brain works like this. I see it, then I do it.
Right.
And then I came up with this analogy. I said, when you want to go for the first time to a new address, for example, they say 2344 Robinson Street. Then you remember the number, and you remember the street name.
Yep.
But after you have gone there to that place for 100 times, if they ask you, you don't know the name of the street, you may not know the number. But you go there in multiple different ways.
Where it is,
Because now you have gained experience and you have forgotten the theory behind it.
Okay.
I said, so, but I can get to that spot in multiple different ways than I used to.
Right.
But interesting part.
It's not according to the book, so then it's wrong.
That is correct.
Yes.
But that is the interesting part. Now, if they tell me the address was 2344, if now there's somebody comes that I go to this place, I have been going, I know it exactly, but I have forgotten the name of the street, and I have forgotten the number, then the street number. If they tell me you should go to 346 Robinson,
you would have to Google it.
I have to Google it for a second time. And then I realize, oh my God, this is next to that one.
Road,
So in order to improve, this is where I'm going. In order to improve, I need the theory.
Right.
But in order to do, I need the experience. Am I making sense?
You are making sense. Yeah.
In order to improve, I have to have the education,
Right.
to remember the street name and the street number and all of those things. But in order to do it, to get there, the experience is much better because I can go from 10 different ways. I don't have to Google anything. I can go in multiple different, through to back alleys or something.
So
I can get there.
Your education that you, let's just say that you start out with in whatever career, that's kind of the foundation, the initial building block.
Exactly.
And then from there you develop, and that's 100% correct, because if you start out new in anything, you try and stick to the rules because you don't know the system fully, you don't understand everything, and then with that, intuitively, you just become comfortable and better, and you know, I can improve this, I can do that. So basically, you need both.
Correct, but you get the first one first. Again, which one first?
There's a sequence to it, but you need both.
Education first. Yes.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back. Education first. And then after that, you develop the experience on top of it.
So what about these? I mean, we spoke about earlier these 50 top businesses where the guy doesn't have the education, but he's clever enough to get guys with the education.
Again, remember, they are entrepreneurs. That's an attitude that they have. There's a trait that they have.
It's a figure it out type of mindset.
But in order for themselves to develop a company that can continue, they need the structure. And the structure does not come without the education part of it.
Yeah.
Again, the driver's test, the country with driver's test, with the bad driver's test versus a country with no driver's test.
It's still
remember that one. Anyways, I hope again you enjoyed this one. We may have to come back to this topic one more time. There are a few more things to say. And the reason is because Doug talks too much, not me.
I didn't say a word.
Okay, so you guys have a good one. Again, remember, life is simple. We make it complicated. We make it. I mean, you make it complicated. Okay, take care.
See you guys.